A millionaire in his final days goes out for one last coffee, but forgets his wallet. A little girl says, "You can have mine, I'm already full." Just before the story starts, wherever you are on your journey, consider this your sign to keep going. The December wind cut through downtown Chicago like a blade, but William Henderson barely felt it. At 73, he'd grown numb to more than just the cold. His Armani coat, worth more than most people's monthly rent, hung loose on his shrinking frame as he walked toward Rosie's Corner Cafe, a tiny establishment he'd never noticed in his 40 years of living in this neighborhood. 6 months. That's what Dr. Mitchell had told him. 6 months, maybe less. Pancreatic cancer doesn't negotiate, doesn't care about your bank account or your empire of luxury hotels. It just takes. Bill pushed open the cafe's squeaky door, breathing in the warm aroma of coffee and fresh pastries. The place was cramped, filled with mismatched chairs and tables that had seen better decades. Nothing like the marble lobbies of his Henderson hotel chain, but today something drew him here. Maybe it was the simplicity. Maybe it was the fact that in 6 months, none of his gold-plated world would matter. "What can I get you, sir?" asked a young woman behind the counter, her tired eyes brightening with professional courtesy. "Large black coffee, please," Bill said, reaching for his wallet. His fingers found empty pockets. Panic flickered through him, not because of the money, but because he'd never, not once in his adult life, been unable to pay for something he wanted. "I'm sorry, I seem to have forgotten my wallet," he said, feeling heat rise to his cheeks. Before the cashier could respond, a small voice piped up from a corner table. "Mister, you can have my coffee. I'm already full anyway." Bill turned to see a little girl, maybe 8 years old, pushing a nearly full cup of hot chocolate toward him. Her clothes were clean but clearly second-hand. A faded purple sweater with tiny holes near the cuffs, jeans with patches at the knees. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her brown eyes held a warmth that made something long frozen inside Bill's chest begin to crack. "Sweetheart, I couldn't possibly—" "Please, mister. You look really cold. And besides," she smiled, revealing a gap where her front tooth used to be, "Mama always says sharing makes everything taste better." The cafe fell silent. Bill looked at this child, this beautiful, generous child, offering her only luxury to a complete stranger. In his world of corporate mergers and hostile takeovers, he'd forgotten that people like this existed. "What's your name, Angel?" he asked, his voice softer than it had been in years. "Emma Rodriguez. What's yours?" "William, but you can call me Bill." He accepted the warm cup, and as their hands briefly touched, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: hope. "Thank you, Emma Rodriguez. This might be the most important coffee of my life." As Bill walked out into the cold Chicago afternoon, he didn't know that the little girl watching him through the window had just changed the course of both their destinies forever. Bill couldn't sleep that night. He paced the marble floors of his penthouse, Emma's gap-toothed smile haunting his thoughts. At 3 a.m., he made a decision that would have shocked his business associates. He called his private investigator. "Marcus, I need you to find everything you can about a family. The child's name is Emma Rodriguez, about 8 years old. She was at Rosie's Corner Cafe on 5th Street yesterday around 2 p.m. "Sir, is there a legal issue? Security concern?" "No, just find them, quietly." 2 days later, Marcus delivered a thin file that made Bill's blood run cold. Emma Rodriguez lived with her mother Maria, 24, and grandmother Carmen, 58, in a one-bedroom apartment in Pilsen. Maria worked 3 jobs, cleaning office buildings at night, stocking shelves at a grocery store in the mornings, and doing laundry at a local laundromat on weekends. Carmen watched Emma while fighting her own battle with diabetes, rationing insulin because they couldn't afford regular doses. The numbers painted a devastating picture. Monthly income, $1,800. Monthly expenses, $1,850. They were drowning $50 deeper every month, kept afloat only by food banks and the kindness of neighbors. "How does an 8-year-old afford coffee at Rosie's?" Bill asked Marcus. "Birthday money from her grandmother. The kid has been saving quarters for 2 months to buy herself a hot chocolate. It was supposed to be her early Christmas present to herself." Bill set the file down with shaking hands. This child had given him her Christmas present, a gift she'd saved quarters for, coin by coin, week after week. The next morning, Bill found himself walking past Emma's elementary school at dismissal time. He spotted her immediately, the same purple sweater, the same bright smile as she hugged a friend goodbye. But now he noticed things he'd missed before. Her shoes had cardboard inside to cover the holes. Her backpack was held together with duct tape. And when she started walking home, she moved slowly, carefully, like someone trying to make a small snack last the entire journey. Bill followed at a distance, watching as Emma stopped at a corner store. Through the window, he saw her count coins carefully before buying a single banana. She split it in half, eating one piece immediately and wrapping the other in a napkin, probably saving it for later or maybe for her grandmother. As Emma disappeared into a rundown apartment building, Bill stood on the sidewalk, feeling something he hadn't experienced in decades: shame. Here was a child living on banana halves and saved quarters, and she'd given her only luxury to him without a second thought. That night, Bill made another call, this time to his lawyer. "Sarah, I need you to set up an anonymous charitable fund. I want to start with the Rodriguez family on Maple Street in Pilsen." "How much are we talking about, Bill?" "Start with their rent, all of it, for the next year." "That's very generous. Any particular reason?" Bill looked out at the Chicago skyline, thinking of a little girl with holes in her shoes and generosity in her heart. "Someone taught me that sharing makes everything taste better." Maria Rodriguez stared at the letter in disbelief, reading it for the 4th time. Her hands trembled as she showed it to her mother Carmen, who was sitting at their tiny kitchen table, carefully measuring her insulin. "Mijo, I don't understand. What does anonymous benefactor mean?" "It means someone is paying our rent for the entire year, Mama. All of it, 12 months paid in full." Carmen set down her syringe and looked at her daughter with suspicious eyes. "Nobody gives away money like that. What's the catch?" Maria had been wondering the same thing. $12,000, more money than their family had ever seen at once. The letter from Henderson and Associates law firm was official, bearing seals and signatures. But it felt like a dream. "Maybe it's a mistake," Maria whispered. But deep down, she hoped it wasn't. 3 jobs were slowly killing her. She'd lost 15 pounds in the last 2 months, surviving on coffee and whatever Emma left on her plate. Every night she fell into bed with her muscles screaming and her heart aching. Knowing she was failing her daughter, Emma needed new clothes, new shoes, books for school. Emma needed her mother present, not exhausted. Meanwhile, across town, Bill was having his own doubts. He'd been generous before. Charity galas, tax-deductible donations to hospitals and museums. But this felt different, personal, dangerous even. "Why anonymous?" Sarah Chen had asked when setting up the fund. "You usually like recognition for your philanthropy." Bill couldn't explain that this wasn't philanthropy. This was something closer to penance. For 60 years, he'd built walls around his heart. Success became his fortress, money his sword. He'd married twice, briefly, to women who loved his bank account more than his soul. No children, no real friends, just business associates and employees paid to care. Emma Rodriguez had cracked those walls with a cup of hot chocolate and a gap-toothed smile. 3 days after the rent payment, Bill found himself at Rosie's cafe again. He told himself he just wanted coffee, but his eyes searched every corner until he found her. Emma sat at the same table, sharing a muffin with an elderly woman who looked exactly like her but 70 years older. That must be Carmen, he thought, watching the grandmother carefully break the muffin into equal pieces. Even in poverty, they shared everything. Emma suddenly looked up and spotted him, her face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Bill! Bill!" She jumped up and ran to him, wrapping her small arms around his waist in an unexpected hug. "I was hoping I'd see you again." The contact sent a shock through his system. When was the last time someone had hugged him without wanting something? When had anyone been genuinely happy to see him? "Hello, Emma. How are you doing?" "Really good. Mama got the best news ever. Someone is helping with our rent, so she doesn't have to work so much. She actually made me breakfast this morning instead of just leaving cereal on the counter, and Abuela can buy her medicine now." Bill's throat tightened. Such simple things. Breakfast with your mother, medicine for your grandmother, things his money had made possible, things that wouldn't exist in 6 months when he was gone. "That's wonderful news, sweetheart." Emma took his hand and pulled him toward her table. "Come meet my abuela. She makes the best tortillas in the whole world." As Bill sat across from Carmen Rodriguez, seeing the curiosity and slight wariness in her eyes, he realized he was crossing a line from which there would be no return. These people weren't just recipients of his charity anymore. They were becoming his family. Carmen Rodriguez studied the well-dressed man sitting across from her, noting the expensive watch, the perfectly tailored coat, the manicured hands that had never seen real work. But she also saw something else, a loneliness so deep it made her grandmother's heart ache. "Emma tells me you're the man she shared her coffee with," Carmen said in accented English, her voice gentle but probing. "Hot chocolate, actually. And yes, that's me. Your granddaughter saved my day." Emma beamed at the compliment, then turned serious. "Bill, you look sad. Are you okay?" Out of the mouths of babes, here was a child living in poverty who was worried about his emotional well-being. Bill felt that familiar crack in his chest widening. "I've been better, sweetheart, but meeting you definitely helped." Over the next hour, Bill learned more about real living than he had in years of board meetings. Emma chattered about school, how she loved reading but struggled with math, how her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had started a book club that Emma couldn't join because they met after school, and her grandmother couldn't drive. Carmen shared stories about their homeland, about traditions Emma was learning, about recipes passed down through generations. "You know," Carmen said thoughtfully, "Emma has been different since that day at the cafe. Happier? She keeps talking about the nice man who accepted her kindness." "Most adults won't let kids help them," Emma explained seriously. "They think we're too little, but you let me help you, and that made me feel big." Bill's vision blurred unexpectedly. This child had felt proud to help him, in his world of power and control. He'd forgotten what it meant to let someone else give. "Emma," he said carefully, "what do you want to be when you grow up?" "A teacher, like Mrs. Patterson. But Mama says college costs too much money, so maybe I'll just work at the store like her." "College does cost money," Bill agreed, "but sometimes people find ways to help with that." Carmen's eyes sharpened. There was something about this man, something that didn't quite fit. Rich men didn't sit in corner cafes listening to 8-year-old girls talk about their dreams. After they parted ways, Bill sat in his car for 20 minutes, watching Emma skip down the sidewalk, holding her grandmother's hand. His phone buzzed with messages from his assistant, board meetings, acquisition deals, profit reports. The empire that had consumed his life for 40 years suddenly felt meaningless. That evening, Bill called his doctor. "Dr. Mitchell, I need to know exactly how much time I have, and I need to know what my final weeks will look like." "Bill, we discussed this. There are variables. Please, I need to plan something important." The silence stretched before Dr. Mitchell spoke quietly. 3 to 4 months of relatively normal function, then decline will be rapid. Why are you asking? I need to set up a trust fund, a large one, and I need to make sure it's bulletproof. After hanging up, Bill opened his laptop and began typing. If he had 4 months, he needed to use them wisely. Emma Rodriguez was going to college. Emma Rodriguez was going to become a teacher. And Emma Rodriguez was never going to know that the man she'd shared her hot chocolate with had made it possible. But first, he had to figure out how to spend the next few months watching her grow up without revealing who he really was or why her small act of kindness had saved his soul. The hardest part? He was already dying, and now, for the first time in decades, he desperately wanted to live. Christmas was 3 weeks away, and Chicago had transformed into a winter wonderland that Emma pressed her face against the window to admire. Bill had been visiting Rosie's cafe 3 times a week, timing his visits to coincide with Emma's after-school hot chocolate when her birthday money allowed. Today was different. Today, Emma wasn't smiling. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Bill asked, sliding into the chair across from her and Carmen. Emma's lower lip trembled. "Mrs. Patterson said there's going to be a Christmas play at school, and everyone gets to invite their families. But Mama works nights now, and she's too tired to come during the day." Carmen reached over and stroked Emma's hair. "Mija, Mama's working hard for us. She wants to come. I know, Abuela, I'm not mad. I wanted her to see me be the narrator. I practiced so hard." Bill felt that familiar fire in his chest. Not anger, but purpose. "When is the play, Emma?" "December 22nd at 2 p.m., but it's okay, really. Abuela will try to come if her diabetes isn't acting up." That afternoon, Bill made a call to Henderson Hotel's HR department. "I need you to contact every cleaning company we contract with in the Chicago area, find out who employs Maria Rodriguez, and arrange for her to have December 22nd off, paid. Tell them it's a special accommodation request and will cover any overtime costs for her replacement." "Sir, that seems like an unusual—" "Just do it." The next day, Maria Rodriguez received a call that left her speechless. An unexpected paid day off, approved by upper management for exceptional service recognition. She hadn't even known her supervisors knew her name. But Bill wasn't finished. He'd learned from Marcus that Carmen's diabetes was worsening because she was rationing insulin to make their budget stretch. One anonymous payment to the pharmacy covered 6 months of supplies, labeled as insurance adjustment. 3 days later, he overheard Emma telling another child at the cafe that she wished she could buy her mother a Christmas present, something special to show how much she appreciated everything Maria did for them. That evening, Bill visited the most exclusive jewelry store in Chicago. "I need something special," he told the owner, "a necklace for a young mother. Something that says you are loved and valued, but it needs to look like something an 8-year-old could afford." The jeweler looked confused until Bill explained. "Make it simple, beautiful, but simple. And I want you to tell the child who comes to buy it that you have a special Christmas discount, 99% off." "Sir, you're talking about a significant loss." "I'll cover the difference. Make it happen." Meanwhile, Emma had been saving every penny she could find, searching couch cushions and picking up coins on the sidewalk. She'd managed to collect $4.37 for her mother's Christmas present. Bill's heart broke and soared simultaneously when Marcus reported that Emma had visited 3 different stores, carefully examining their cheapest items, trying to find something worthy of her mother with her tiny budget. On December 15th, Emma walked into Goldstein Jewelers with her crumpled dollar bills and handful of coins. Bill was waiting in a rental car across the street, watching through the window as the jeweler showed Emma a delicate silver necklace with a small heart pendant. Through the glass, he could see Emma's eyes widen with wonder, then fall with disappointment when she saw the price tag, but the jeweler leaned down and whispered something in her ear. Emma's face transformed with joy as she carefully counted out her money, When Emma emerged from the store clutching a small velvet box, Bill wiped tears from his eyes. Inside that box was a $3,000 necklace that an 8-year-old girl believed she'd bought with playground change for her hard-working mother. But the real gift wasn't the necklace. It was watching Emma skip down the street, radiating happiness because she could give her mother something beautiful. It was knowing that in 1 week, Maria would sit in the front row of a school auditorium, wearing a necklace chosen with love, watching her daughter shine on stage. Bill had spent his life accumulating wealth, but Emma Rodriguez was teaching him what it meant to be rich. As he drove home that night, Bill realized he had exactly 93 days left to live, and for the first time in his entire adult life, he knew exactly how he wanted to spend them. The night of December 22nd changed everything. Bill sat in the back row of Emma's school auditorium, wearing a baseball cap and glasses he didn't need, watching as 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez stood center stage with confidence that belied her age. Her clear voice carried through the packed auditorium as she narrated the Christmas story, and Bill found himself leaning forward, hanging on every word like she was delivering a presidential address. In the front row, Maria Rodriguez sat with tears streaming down her face, wearing the delicate silver necklace that caught the stage lights. Carmen was beside her, insulin pump working properly for the first time in months, both hands pressed to her heart as her granddaughter commanded the stage. And so, Emma's voice rang out clear and strong, "The greatest gifts are not the ones we receive, but the ones we give with love." The words hit Bill like a physical blow. Here was a child who had lived this truth, who had given her Christmas present to a stranger, and somehow changed his entire world. After the play, Bill watched from a distance as Emma ran into her mother's arms, both of them crying and laughing. He saw Maria touch the necklace at her throat with wonder, saw Carmen beam with pride that her granddaughter was the star of the show. That's when Bill made the decision that would alter everything. He called Sarah Chen from the parking lot. "Sarah, I need you to draft a new will. I'm leaving everything to Emma Rodriguez." "Bill, I have to advise against such a hasty decision. You barely know this child. There are legal complications, tax implications. I know exactly what I'm doing. Set up a trust that activates when she turns 18. Full college tuition, living expenses, and a substantial inheritance that she can't access until she's 25. But I want you to do something else." "What?" "I want to tell her the truth. About the money. About everything. I'm dying, Sarah. I have maybe 2 months left. This little girl gave me something no one else could. She gave me a reason to matter. I want to spend whatever time I have left being part of her life, not just watching from the shadows." "Bill, that's a significant emotional burden to place on a child. She's stronger than you think, and I'll be careful how I tell her." 2 days later, Bill waited at Rosie's cafe, more nervous than he'd been for any business merger. Emma arrived with Carmen, still glowing from her successful performance. "Bill, did you know our Christmas play was yesterday? I was the narrator." "Actually, Emma, I did know. I was there." Emma's eyes widened. "You were? I didn't see you." "I sat in the back. You were absolutely magnificent, the best narrator I've ever heard." Emma beamed, then tilted her head curiously. "How did you know about the play?" This was it, the moment of truth. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you. Something important about why I've been able to spend so much time at this cafe and why I always seem to know when you'll be here." Carmen's instincts sharpened. She'd been wondering about this man for weeks. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm a very wealthy man, wealthy enough that I don't have to work every day like most people, and when you shared your hot chocolate with me, something happened that changed my whole life." "What happened?" "I remembered what it felt like to matter to someone. I've been alone for a very long time, Emma. I don't have a family of my own, but you You made me feel like I belonged somewhere." Emma reached across the table and took his hand with the natural compassion of a child who understood loneliness. "You can belong with us, Bill. Right, Abuela?" Carmen studied this man with new eyes. Wealthy. That explained the expensive clothes, the perfect posture, the way he never seemed worried about money, but it didn't explain the pain she saw in his eyes. "Emma is right," Carmen said softly. "But Bill, why are you telling us this now?" Bill looked at both of them, this generous child and her wise grandmother, and took a breath that would change all their lives forever. "Because I'm dying, and I want to spend whatever time I have left making sure Emma knows she's going to be okay. Better than okay. I want to make sure all of you are going to be okay." The cafe fell silent, except for the soft Christmas music playing overhead. Emma's hand tightened on his. "Are you very sick?" "Yes, sweetheart, very sick." "Then we need to take extra good care of you," Emma said with the matter-of-fact certainty of a child who had never known any response to crisis except love. And in that moment, Bill Henderson, who had built an empire worth hundreds of millions, who had commanded boardrooms and influenced politicians, broke down and cried in a Chicago cafe because an 8-year-old girl wanted to take care of him. Everything was about to change. The days following Bill's revelation transformed the rhythm of 3 lives in ways none of them could have predicted. Emma, with the resilient adaptability of childhood, simply absorbed this new reality and moved forward with characteristic determination. "If you're going to be sick, then you need to eat better," she announced the morning after their cafe conversation, standing in Bill's penthouse kitchen with her hands on her hips like a tiny general. "Abuela says sick people need soup, vegetables, and lots of love." Bill looked around his sterile marble palace, a space that had never heard a child's laughter or felt a family's warmth. Emma was studying his sub-zero refrigerator with the seriousness of a medical professional. "Bill, why don't you have any food? Just bottles and boxes and things that don't look like real food." She was right. His kitchen contained protein shakes, meal replacement bars, and takeout containers from expensive restaurants. Nothing that resembled the home-cooked meals he watched Emma's family share. "I've never really learned to cook for myself," he admitted. "Then it's good you have us now," Emma declared. "Mama knows how to make everything delicious, and Abuela can teach you. Cooking is like making love into food." That afternoon, Maria Rodriguez stood in Bill's kitchen, looking completely overwhelmed. Carmen had insisted she bring groceries and cook for the sick man who helped our Emma, but nothing had prepared her for this level of luxury. "Mr. Henderson, I don't know how to use any of these machines," Maria whispered, staring at appliances that cost more than her annual salary. "Please call me Bill, and honestly, I don't know how to use most of them either." For the next 3 hours, Bill's penthouse filled with something it had never contained: the sounds of a family. Emma sat at his dining table doing homework, while Maria and Carmen worked together to create magic from simple ingredients. The aroma of garlic, cumin, and slow-simmering chicken filled spaces that had only ever smelled of expensive cologne and emptiness. "This is how you make caldo de pollo," Carmen explained to Bill, showing him how to properly dice onions. "The secret is not just the ingredients, but the intention. You cook with love, and people taste the love." Bill found himself laughing, actually laughing, as he attempted to follow Carmen's instructions. His onions were crooked, his seasoning heavy-handed, but Emma cheered every small success like he was winning awards. "You're getting better, Bill. Soon you'll be able to make soup for yourself when we're not here." When we're not here. The words hit him harder than any cancer diagnosis. These people had walked into his life just as he was preparing to leave it. And now the thought of being without them felt worse than dying. "Emma," he said carefully, "what would you think about spending more time here? Your mama could use my kitchen whenever she wants, and there's plenty of space. Maria looked up sharply. She'd been wondering when this conversation would come. Rich men didn't cook with poor families without wanting something in return. Mr. Henderson, Bill, that's very generous, but I need to ask, what exactly do you want from us? The question hung in the air like smoke. Bill set down his knife and looked directly at Maria with eyes that held decades of loneliness. I want to matter to someone before I die. I want to know that my life made a difference beyond board meetings and profit margins. Emma shared her Christmas present with a stranger, and somehow that simple act of kindness saved my soul. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I want to be part of a family for the first time in my life. Even if it's just for a few months, even if I don't deserve it. Carmen studied this broken man with grandmother's intuition. She saw past the expensive clothes and perfect posture to the scared, lonely boy underneath. Mijo, she said softly, family isn't about deserving. Family is about choosing to love someone and letting them love you back. Emma looked up from her homework with the matter-of-fact wisdom that only children possess. Bill, you're already family. Family doesn't leave each other alone when someone is sick. That's just not how families work. That night, as Bill watched Emma fall asleep on his leather sofa while Maria and Carmen cleaned his kitchen, he realized that he had spent 73 years building walls around his heart, and an 8-year-old girl had demolished them all with hot chocolate and unconditional acceptance. For the first time since his diagnosis, Bill wasn't thinking about dying. He was thinking about living whatever days he had left, surrounded by the love he'd never known he needed. January brought Chicago's bitter cold and an unexpected complication that would test every relationship Bill had built. Emma caught pneumonia. It started as a simple cough during the first week back to school after winter break. By January 15th, she was burning with fever and struggling to breathe. Maria sat in the emergency room, holding her daughter's hand, watching numbers on a monitor that meant nothing to her but everything to the doctors. Bilateral pneumonia, Dr. Sarah Kim explained gently. We need to admit her for IV antibiotics. She's going to be fine. But recovery will take time. Bill arrived at Chicago Children's Hospital 20 minutes after Maria called him, having broken every speed limit between downtown and the medical center. He found Maria crying in the hallway while Carmen sat beside Emma's bed, singing softly in Spanish. The insurance, Maria whispered to Bill. They say it might not cover everything. The deductible alone is $3,000, and if she needs extended care. Stop, Bill said firmly. Don't worry about money. Not for 1 second. Bill, I can't let you... Yes, you can. This is what families do for each other. Within an hour, Bill had spoken to the hospital administrator, the insurance company, and Emma's medical team. Every bill would be covered, every treatment available. Money would never be a factor in Emma's care, but money couldn't fix everything. Emma spent 6 days in the hospital, and Bill was there for every single one. He read her stories when she was awake, held her hand when she cried, and slept in an uncomfortable chair because she said his presence made her feel safer. Bill, Emma whispered on day 4, her voice hoarse from coughing. Are you going to die before I get better? The question caught him off guard. In all his planning, he hadn't considered that Emma might worry about losing him while she was fighting her own battle. No, sweetheart. I'm going to be here when you get better. I promise. Good. Because I have something important to tell you when I'm not so tired. What is it, Angel? It's a secret. A really good secret. But I have to be stronger before I can tell you. Emma fell asleep holding his hand, and Bill spent the night wondering what secret an 8-year-old could possibly have that required strength to share. On day 7, Emma was discharged with strict instructions for rest and follow-up care. Bill insisted they stay at his penthouse during her recovery. His building had a doctor on call, better air filtration, and space for everyone to be comfortable. Maria finally agreed, but only after Carmen pulled her aside and whispered something in rapid Spanish that made Maria's eyes fill with tears. "What did your mother say?" Bill asked later. "She said that sometimes angels come disguised as lonely rich men, and we should stop questioning God's methods." That evening, as Emma rested on Bill's couch wrapped in blankets, finally looking like herself again, she beckoned him closer. "Bill, I'm strong enough now. I can tell you my secret." "I'm listening, sweetheart." Emma's eyes grew serious beyond her years. "I know you're really sick, sicker than you told us. I heard the doctors talking when you didn't think I was awake." Bill's heart stopped. "Emma, and I know you're scared about what will happen to us when you're gone. I can see it in your eyes sometimes." The child's perception was devastating in its accuracy. "But here's my secret, Bill. I'm not sad that you're dying. I'm happy that you're living, really living for the first time. Mama says she can see it in how you smile now. And Abuela says your spirit was sleeping before, but now it's awake." Emma took his hand with her small fingers. "So my secret is this. I'm not going to be sad when you go to heaven. I'm going to be grateful that heaven sent you to us first, even if it was just for a little while. And I'm going to make sure Mama and Abuela remember that too." Bill couldn't speak. This child, this magnificent child, was comforting him about his own death. She was taking care of his heart while he was supposed to be taking care of hers. "There's something else," Emma continued. "I think you need to know that we're going to be okay, really okay, because you taught us that we deserve good things, and now we believe it." As Bill held Emma that night, listening to her breathing grow stronger with each hour, he realized that she had given him something more precious than his money could ever buy: the gift of dying without regret. But Emma's recovery had also revealed something else, something that would change everything in ways none of them could imagine. February arrived with news that shattered Bill's carefully constructed timeline. Dr. Mitchell's latest scans revealed what they'd all feared but hoped to avoid. "The progression is faster than we anticipated," Dr. Mitchell said quietly in his office while Bill sat alone, having insisted Maria and Carmen stay home with Emma. 6 weeks. Possibly 8. I'm sorry, Bill. 6 weeks. Not the 3 months he'd been counting on. Not enough time to see Emma's 9th birthday in April. Not enough time to ensure the trust was perfect, the legal documents bulletproof, the future secured exactly as he envisioned. Bill drove home in a daze, his mind racing through everything he still needed to accomplish. The trust fund was established, but required final signatures. Emma's college savings needed adjustment. He wanted to record videos for her major life events: graduation, wedding, her first teaching job. Most importantly, he needed to find a way to tell her the complete truth about what he was leaving behind. When he walked into his penthouse, he found Emma and Maria in his study, carefully organizing a photo album they'd been creating together. Pictures of their time together over the past 2 months. Emma cooking in his kitchen, all of them at Navy Pier. Christmas morning, when they'd brought gifts to his empty apartment and filled it with laughter. "Bill!" Emma jumped up and hugged him. "Look what we made. It's our family book, so when you're in heaven you can show everyone the family you had on earth." The innocence of her words broke something inside him. Emma still believed he would simply transition peacefully to some better place. She didn't know about the pain that was coming, the way cancer would steal his dignity before it stole his life. "Emma, sweetheart, we need to talk about something important." Maria looked up from the photo album, immediately sensing the shift in his tone. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "I saw Dr. Mitchell today. Things are progressing faster than we hoped." Emma tilted her head with the curiosity of a child trying to understand adult euphemisms. "What does that mean exactly?" Bill knelt down to her level, taking her hands in his. At 8 years old, she deserved honesty wrapped in gentleness. "It means I don't have as much time as we thought. maybe 6 more weeks to spend together. Emma's face cycled through confusion, understanding, and finally a determination that took his breath away. "Then we need to make them the best 6 weeks ever," she declared. "We can't waste time being sad about later when we could be happy about now." Maria wiped tears from her eyes. "Emma, it's okay to feel sad about this. I know, Mama, and I will be sad later. But right now, Bill is here and we love him, and he loves us. So right now should be about love, not sadness." That evening, Emma presented Bill with a list she'd written in her careful third-grade handwriting. Things Bill needs to do before heaven. 1. Learn to make Abuela's famous enchiladas. 2. Go ice skating, even if he falls down. 3. See my school and meet Mrs. Patterson. 4. Have a sleepover with movies and popcorn. 5. Help me pick out Mama's birthday present. 6. Teach me about business so I can be smart like him. 7. Make sure we know he loves us every single day. Bill read the list through tears, marveling at how a child could distill the complexity of dying into simple, achievable goals focused entirely on love and connection. "There's one more thing I need to add to this list," he said. "What?" "I need to tell you about something very important that I'm leaving for you, something that will help take care of you and your mama and abuela for your whole lives." Emma looked puzzled. "What kind of something?" "The kind of something that means you'll never have to worry about money again. The kind of something that means you can go to any college you want, and your mama won't have to work 3 jobs, and your abuela can have all the medicine she needs." Maria's eyes widened. "Bill, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that everything I own, everything I've built in my life, is going to belong to Emma when she grows up. I'm leaving her my entire fortune." The room fell silent. Maria looked stunned. Carmen, who had been quietly listening from the kitchen, sat down heavily. Emma, however, just looked confused. "But Bill, I don't want your money. I want you." "I know, Angel, but you can't have me forever, so instead, I'm giving you something that will let you help other people the way you helped me. You can use it to make the world better." "How much money are we talking about?" Maria whispered. Bill looked at the 3 people who had become his entire world and spoke the number that would change everything. $437 million. The silence that followed was broken only by Emma's small voice. "Is that a lot?" Despite everything, Bill laughed. "Yes, sweetheart, that's a lot." But as he watched the shock and disbelief transform into something approaching fear on Maria's and Carmen's faces, Bill realized that money this vast would bring complications none of them had anticipated. Emma Rodriguez was about to become one of the wealthiest children in America, and they had 6 weeks to prepare for what that would mean. The revelation of Bill's fortune created an earthquake that shook the foundation of everything they'd built together. 3 days after learning the truth, Maria hadn't slept, Carmen hadn't stopped praying, and Emma seemed to be the only one unaffected by the magnitude of what was coming. "Mama, why are you scared?" Emma asked on Thursday morning, finding Maria staring out the window of Bill's penthouse with red-rimmed eyes. "Bill is still the same person. Mija, you don't understand. That much money, it changes everything. People will want things from us. They'll say we took advantage of him. They'll try to hurt us or use you." Emma considered this with the seriousness she applied to all problems. "Then we'll have to be very careful about who we trust, but that doesn't mean we stop trusting everyone." Meanwhile, Bill was discovering that his good intentions had created a legal and social minefield. Sarah Chen had been fielding calls from distant relatives who'd never shown interest in Bill's life, but were suddenly concerned about his mental state. The media had somehow caught wind of the story, and reporters were digging into the Rodriguez family's background with predatory enthusiasm. "Bill, I have to ask," Sarah said during an emergency meeting in his study while the family waited in another room. "Are you absolutely certain about this decision? There are ways to provide for Emma's future without making her a target." "She saved my life, Sarah, not in some metaphorical way. She literally saved my soul when I was ready to give up on everything. If that's not worth my fortune, then what would be? But consider the practical implications. Emma will need security, financial advisors, lawyers. Her childhood is essentially over. Is that what you want for her?" Before Bill could answer, they were interrupted by a commotion from the living room. Maria was on the phone, her voice shaking with anger. "No, I will not comment on whether we manipulated a dying man. No, you cannot speak to my daughter. Don't call this number again." She hung up and turned to find Bill standing in the doorway. "They're calling us gold diggers," she said quietly. "They're saying we planned this whole thing to steal your money." Emma looked up from her coloring book with confusion. "What's a gold digger?" "Someone who pretends to love a person just to get their money," Carmen explained gently. Emma's face darkened with an anger none of them had ever seen from her. "That's stupid. We loved Bill before we even knew he had money. And we'd love him if he was poor too." She stood up and walked to Bill with purpose. "Bill, do the people saying mean things about us know that you're dying?" "Yes, sweetheart." And they're more worried about your money than about you being sick?" "It seems that way." "Then they're not good people, and we shouldn't care what not good people think." Her simple logic cut through weeks of anxiety like a blade. But the outside pressure was mounting, and Bill knew they needed a plan. That afternoon, he made a decision that would protect Emma while honoring his commitment to her future. "I'm going to change the structure of the inheritance," he announced to Sarah. "Not the amount, but how it works." "What do you mean?" "Emma gets access to education funds immediately, unlimited for her and her family, medical care, living expenses, reasonable comfort. But the bulk of the fortune doesn't transfer until she's 30, and only if she demonstrates she understands the responsibility. And if she doesn't want it, then it goes to charity, as she directs." That evening, Bill explained the modified plan to Emma and her family. "The money will be there if and when you want it," he told Emma. "But you'll have 15 years after you turn 18 to decide if you want that responsibility. You can live a normal life, become a teacher like you want, and never touch it if that makes you happier." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "And if I do want it, I can use it to help people." "That's exactly what I hope you'll do." "Then that sounds perfect. But Bill, there's something I need you to know." "What's that, Angel?" "Even if you weren't giving us anything, even if you were poor like us, these would still be the best weeks of my whole life, because I finally have a grandpa." The word hit Bill like lightning. Grandpa. In all his planning and legal maneuvering, he'd missed the most important truth. Emma didn't see him as a benefactor or a dying billionaire. She saw him as family. "I've never been anyone's grandpa before," he said softly. "Well, you're really good at it. The best grandpa ever." As Bill tucked Emma into bed that night in the guest room that had become hers, she made one final request. "Grandpa Bill, will you tell me a story about when you were little? Not a made-up story, a real one." And so, with 3 weeks left to live, Bill Henderson began sharing the childhood memories he'd buried for 70 years, connecting his past to Emma's future in ways that no amount of money ever could. With 2 weeks remaining, Bill's physical decline became impossible to hide. He moved slower, tired more easily, and had started using a wheelchair for longer outings. But his spirit had never been stronger. Emma had adapted to his changing condition with the remarkable resilience of childhood, becoming his self-appointed caregiver and entertainment director. She'd learned to adjust his pillows without being asked, bring him water before he felt thirsty, and somehow always know when he needed encouragement. "Grandpa Bill," she said one morning while helping him with his medication, "Mrs. Patterson wants to meet you. She says any man who makes a student as happy as you make me must be pretty special. That afternoon, Bill visited Emma's elementary school for the first time. Watching Emma light up as she introduced him to her teacher and friends gave him a joy he couldn't have imagined. She proudly showed him her artwork hanging in the hallway, her reading corner in the classroom, the playground where she spent recess. "This is my Grandpa Bill," she told everyone they met. "He's really sick, but he's the best grandpa in the world." Mrs. Patterson pulled Bill aside after the visit. "I don't know your full story," she said quietly, "but I want you to know that Emma talks about you every day. She's grown more confident, more excited about learning, more caring toward other students. Whatever you've brought into her life, it's made her shine brighter." That evening, Bill made his final video recordings, messages for Emma's future birthdays, graduation, wedding day, and the day she became a teacher. Each recording was brief, but filled with love and pride for the woman she would become. "Happy 18th birthday, my dear Emma," he said to the camera. "By now you know that life is both harder and more beautiful than an 8-year-old could understand. I hope you've stayed kind. I hope you've stayed generous. And I hope you remember that an old man's greatest gift wasn't money. It was getting to love you." The next day brought unexpected visitors. Bill's estranged nephew David and his wife Jennifer arrived at the penthouse demanding a meeting. "Uncle Bill, we need to discuss this situation," David said, eyeing Emma and her family with barely concealed hostility. "You're clearly not thinking rationally. This child and her family have obviously manipulated you during a vulnerable time." Emma, who had been coloring quietly at the kitchen table, looked up with interest rather than fear. "Are you Bill's family?" she asked David politely. "I'm his nephew, his only real family." "That's nice. It's good that Bill has more family. Do you visit him a lot?" David's face reddened. "That's not the point. The point is—" "The point," Bill interrupted, his voice carrying an authority that had commanded boardrooms for decades, "is that you haven't spoken to me in 5 years until you heard about my will. Emma visits me every day. She reads to me, cooks with me, and makes me laugh. Which one of us sounds like family to you?" Jennifer stepped forward with practiced sympathy. "Bill, we understand you're lonely, but surely you can see that leaving everything to a child you've known for 2 months is the best decision I've ever made," Bill finished firmly. Emma stood up from her coloring and walked over to David with the fearless directness of childhood. "Are you sad that Grandpa Bill is dying?" she asked. The question caught David off guard. "Well, yes, of course. Have you told him that? Have you spent time with him since he got sick?" "It's complicated." "It's not complicated," Emma said with 8-year-old clarity. "Either you love someone and want to be with them, or you don't. Grandpa Bill needed family, and we became his family. If you wanted to be his family, you could have been here too." She paused, then added with devastating innocence, "But it's okay if you just care about the money. Some people aren't good at loving. That doesn't make you bad people, just different people." The visit ended abruptly, with David and Jennifer leaving in angry frustration, threatening legal action that both Bill and Sarah knew would fail. That night, as Bill struggled with pain that was becoming harder to manage, Emma crawled into bed beside him. "Grandpa Bill, are you scared?" "Sometimes, Angel. Are you?" "A little. But Mama says being scared just means something is important to us. And you're very important to us." "Emma, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll remember that the best thing about having money isn't buying things for yourself. It's being able to help other people the way you helped me." "I promise." "But Grandpa Bill—" "Yes? I think you helped us more than we helped you." As Emma fell asleep in his arms, Bill realized that David had been wrong about one thing. Bill hadn't known Emma for 2 months. He felt like he'd been waiting his whole life to meet her, and these few months together were just the universe finally putting the right people in the right place at the right time. With 1 week left, Everything was in place except for the hardest part, saying goodbye. Bill's final week arrived with Chicago's first hint of spring, and Emma declared that meant they needed to celebrate everything beautiful about being alive. Despite his weakening condition, she insisted on one last adventure. "Grandpa Bill, you haven't seen the lake yet when it's starting to wake up," she said, carefully helping him into his wheelchair. "The ice is breaking up, and Mama says it sounds like the earth is stretching after a long winter nap." They spent Saturday afternoon at Lake Michigan, wrapped in blankets, watching ice floes drift past, while Emma chatted about everything and nothing. She told him about her plans for 4th grade, her ideas for helping other kids at school, her dreams of teaching children who didn't have much money. "I want to be the kind of teacher who makes kids feel important," she said, "like you made me feel important." "You were always important, sweetheart. I just helped you see it." Sunday brought family from everywhere. Maria's sister drove up from Texas with her 3 children. Carmen's brother flew in from California. The penthouse filled with the sounds of a real family gathering, children laughing, adults sharing stories. Food cooking in the kitchen that had been silent for too many years. Bill watched it all from his chair by the window, overwhelmed by the love surrounding him. These people had embraced him completely, making him the center of their family, not because of what he could give them, but because Emma had declared him worthy of love. Monday. His breathing became labored. Dr. Mitchell arrived with hospice nurses who set up equipment to keep him comfortable. Emma appointed herself head nurse, carefully monitoring his water intake and making sure his favorite classical music played softly in the background. "Does it hurt?" she asked Tuesday evening as they watched the sunset from his bedroom. "Not when you're here," he answered honestly. Her presence seemed to push back the darkness in ways medicine couldn't. "Good, because I need to tell you something important before you go to heaven." "I'm listening, Angel." Emma took his hand with the solemnity of someone delivering crucial news. "I figured out why God sent you to us right when you were dying. It wasn't just so we could take care of you, and it wasn't just so you could take care of us." "What was it then?" "It was so you could learn what love feels like before you went to heaven. Because how can you be happy in heaven if you've never been happy on earth?" Her words hit him with the force of divine revelation. This child had understood something profound that had taken him 73 years to discover. "And now," Emma continued, "when you get to heaven, you can tell them all about your family. You can tell them about Maria's singing and Carmen's cooking and how I'm going to be a teacher. You won't be lonely there because you'll have stories about people who love you." Wednesday morning, Bill woke to find Emma asleep in the chair beside his bed, her small hand wrapped around his finger. Maria was curled up on the sofa across the room, and Carmen was sleeping peacefully in the guest room. His family, his impossible, miraculous family. "Emma," he whispered. She woke immediately, alert in the way children are when someone they love is sick. "I'm here, Grandpa Bill. Do you need anything?" "I need you to know something. Meeting you was the most important thing that ever happened to me. You saved my life in every way a person can be saved. I love you too, Grandpa Bill." "Emma, when I'm gone, I want you to remember something very important. The money I'm leaving you isn't really mine anymore. It belongs to the little girl who shared her hot chocolate with a stranger because she thought he looked cold. Use it the way you would use that hot chocolate, to warm people up when they need it most. I will, I promise. And remember that being rich isn't about having money. Being rich is about having people who love you. You were rich before you ever met me, and you'll be rich long after I'm gone." Emma nodded seriously, then smiled with the radiance that had first captured his heart. "Grandpa Bill, I'm not going to say goodbye because I don't think this is really goodbye. I think this is just see you later." Thursday evening. As Chicago's lights twinkled beyond his window and his breathing grew shallow, Bill was surrounded by love. Maria held one hand while Emma held the other. Carmen sang softly in Spanish. The hospice nurse monitored his comfort with gentle efficiency. "Tell me the story about the hot chocolate again," Emma whispered. So Bill told it one last time, the story of a dying man who forgot his wallet and discovered that the richest thing in the world was an 8-year-old girl's generosity. He told it slowly, savoring every detail, until his voice faded into peaceful silence. Emma felt his hand relax in hers and knew he was gone. But instead of crying, she smiled. "See you later, Grandpa Bill. Thank you for teaching me that sharing makes everything taste better." William Henderson died as he had never lived before, surrounded by family, filled with love, and certain that his life had mattered. An 8-year-old girl's cup of hot chocolate had led him home to a family he never knew he needed, and her inheritance would allow her to spend a lifetime sharing that same transformative kindness with the world. The little girl who had given away her Christmas present to a stranger had received in return something no money could buy: the knowledge that love multiplies when it's shared, and that sometimes the greatest gifts come in the smallest packages. Emma Rodriguez would indeed become a teacher, and much later, when she was ready, she would use Bill Henderson's fortune to build schools for children who needed hope, proving that the circle of generosity that began with a cup of hot chocolate could grow to embrace the world.